Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Girdharidhari 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 Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana 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 Yamuna Tira Vanachari 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Girdharidhari Jaya Gopi Jana Girdharidhari Jaya Gopi Jana Girdharidhari Jaya Gopi Jana Girdharidhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Ashtotra Saraswati Simhat A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Ashtotra Saraswati Simhat Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Unat Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Sri Rupa Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण को गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज गिरिगोधाम की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगमयी जमुनामाई की जय। श्रीमद् तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। शारदा भक्त वृंद की जय। हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। श्री श्री गौनिताय की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा की जय। गाय गौर प्रेमानंद और ग्लोरीज से ग्लोरीज से Oh, glories, 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 Guru Ji Gaura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So I read from Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, text 33 and 34, chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga. Text 34. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna paramati balavadridham tasyam nirgnam manaye vyayor eva suduskaram. Translation. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate and very strong. Of Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Krishna, this is Arjuna is saying to Krishna, and then Lord Krishna is replying in the next text. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Asamsaya Mano Vaho Manodandritaham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kunteya Vairagena cha Grayete. Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. The difficulty in controlling the obstinate mind is expressed by Arjuna is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that the practice and detachment, by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and the mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method of purifying the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities of not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from the matter and engagement of the mind and spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parasanubhuti, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more he eats while hungry, the more he feels satisfied and spent. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objects. It is sometimes like curing the disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mind, for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering passion. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Om Gyan Kumandandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshushantam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Mahavidanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Nami Gaurata Vishnamaha Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripasindhu Vyachcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaisa Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaurata Vrinda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in this section of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is complaining to Krishna that although you have described to me this wonderful process of yoga and control of the mind, but I find that it is very difficult to control the mind. With my knowledge of Dhanurvidya means the art of archery, I can control even the whirling wind from its great destruction. But the mind is so obstinate that it cannot be controlled. So Krishna is explaining that surely the mind is undoubtedly very uncontrollable. But with proper practice and understanding, one can control the mind. So Prabhupada is giving a very nice explanation in the purport where how one can control the mind. So Krishna consciousness is a very simple process based on attachment to the Supreme Lord and detachment from material activities. For many lifetimes, we see that we have gone through many different births, and due to different births and different circumstances, we have become attached so much to this material world that we cannot see beyond the material world. But at some stage, by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord and His pure devotee, they come to us, and out of compassion, they try to show us a way out of this material world. In this material world, we see that there is not one person who can claim that he is very happily situated. Although we have an illusion from where we are standing, we see different people in different situations. And we think, if I was in that situation, I think I would be very happy. Because it seems to me that he is very happy. So externally, it may seem that you are happy. For example, you see, in the Western world, they have nightclubs, and when people go to nightclub, they seem to appear in a happy frame of mind because they are on the dance floor dancing and hearing music and drinking alcohol. And all these things, external seems very, very nice and pleasant. But when you're actually in that situation, you find it is not very pleasant, because by hearing this material sound, it disturbs the equilibrium of your mind and the balance. At the same time, when you get intoxicated with alcohol, you lose control of the self. And that whole environment creates very, very undesirable situation. But because you are so much influenced by mode of ignorance, that you cannot see beyond. And I give this example all the time, which is an appropriate example to see one who is in mode of ignorance, how happy he is. One example is that a hog, he is so much in mode of ignorance that he remains in the sewers, and he enjoys the filth and stool in the sewers. Now, if we have to do that, I'm sure we would feel very uncomfortable, because it is a very dirty and filthy place. But for a hog, it's quite natural. Even to the extent that if you take the hog out of his filthy condition, clean him up with shampoo and soap and scented oils and everything, and make him very fresh and fresh smelling and very refreshed from the filth of the sewers, and then put him in a small compound where you provide his daily necessities of all the different kinds of foodstuffs, which are very nicely and very cleanly kept there, and some straw on the ground for bedding. All this wonderful arrangement is there, which is required for one's sustenance. Prabhupada explains that it is a natural propensity for living entity to eat, sleep, mate and defend. Whether you are in animal form or you are in a human form, these are four basic things. So you provide all these wonderful arrangements for the hog, and one would think that the hog is such a happy situation because his basic necessities of eating, sleeping, mating, defending are provided for. What does one want more? Because in material life, we experience in our own lives that we are working day and night very hard just to fulfill the propensities of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But as soon as you open the compound gate, the hog will run out and run straight back into the sewers. Because by nature, he is so influenced by a lot of ignorance that he is quite happy in that situation. Because he doesn't know any situation better than that. So the similar example is given in the scriptures that Lord Indra, one time, he was sitting in his transcendental palace in the heavenly planets and enjoying the dancing girls dancing and the music was playing, and he was in his full flow of enjoyment. And generally in the Vedic tradition is that when some elevated person comes, you stand up and you greet him and you welcome him. So even in our own homes, if we are living in our homes and some friend comes, immediately we will greet him and welcome him in our homes. We will not ignore him. So at one time, when Indra was sitting there quite happily enjoying this heavenly enjoyment, Durvasa Muni happened to enter in the courtyard. And as Durvasa Muni entered, Indra was so much absorbed in these dancing girls that he violated the etiquette of welcoming Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Muni got very angry and said, that, why are you violating the Vedic principles? So he cursed him that for 1 year, you have to take birth in the material world as a hog. And then Durvasa Muni went away. So the time came for Indra, who has got all the fineries of world, much fineries than what we can find in this material world. Because in heavenly planets, they say that whatever we have, so-called objects of sense enjoyment in this material world, is 10,000 times better than what we can experience here. So you can imagine what kind of facilities he had. So he had to give all that up and come down into the material world and take up a hog's body. And in the hog's body, he took a birth, and then he was growing up as a young baby hog, and then he grew a little older, and then he met a female hog and established his little harem, and he had she-hog and him and his little hoglets everywhere, and wallowing away in the stool and completely absorbed, oblivious to the world. He was saying this is the highest enjoyment one can ever have. So he was completely absorbed there, and that is because he doesn't know any better. That is his highest enjoyment. So meanwhile, 1 year went past, and things were very chaotic in the heavenly kingdom because there is no one to rule. We know in any country, in the material world, if the leader is not there, then there is disarray and chaos. So Brahma thought that he has to bring order back to the heavenly kingdom. So when the 1 year period was over of the curse, Lord Brahma came down and told Lord Indra, because Lord Brahma with his transcendental vision, he could understand that this particular hog's body is occupied by Indra. So when he approached that hog and told that, dear Lord Indra, now please give up this body and come back to your heavenly kingdom and take up your rightful position again. And Indra was looking at Lord Brahma and saying, are you crazy? How I can give up this wonderful world of mine? But he said, if he had little intelligence, which is not covered by the word of ignorance, then he could have compared the heavenly life and the life in the souls. And he would have understood that of course heavenly life is much better than the souls. But because he didn't know anything and was covered by ignorance, he thought this is the best thing in life. I cannot give this up. So he refused to come out of that body. Then Brahma felt compassion. And because of Brahma's compassion, he opened his darkened eyes and got him knowledge and said, look, this is a hog's body, but you are not supposed to be in the hog's body. This is a temporary situation here. But you are actually Lord Indra. You are residents of Lord, the heavenly planets. You are the king of heaven. Then immediately, by Brahma's mercy, he could understand that his position was wrongfully occupied in the hog's body. So when he saw himself in the hog's body, he was completely disturbed by the whole thing and immediately gave up without a second thought and went back to the heavenly planet and took up his natural position. So in this story of Lord Indra being cursed as a hog, we can see that our situation is like that. And when we are so much covered by ignorance, we cannot see beyond that. And our minds are completely absorbed in lower taste. And because of many lifetimes of going through different bodies in this material world, the mind becomes completely used to this kind of atmosphere, thinking that this is my natural home. And we make all arrangements to make ourselves comfortable. You see, everybody in this material world is trying to make him or herself comfortable. And we are going to great extents to make our lives very comfortable. But even though after making your life comfortable, you are still not happy. So coming back to the original point where I was saying that when we are standing in a particular point and we look at other person and see, well, if I had the same situation, I think I would be very happy. So sometimes we think an illusion, thinking if I have a lot of wealth, then I will be very well situated. Because I don't have to work, I can enjoy whatever I like, at leisure I can do anything I like. But we see that those people who are endowed with unlimited wealth, they still have to work day and night hard. You don't see someone like Bill Gates, who is one of the billionaires in the world, and he has not a day to worry. He doesn't have to worry that if I don't go to work, I don't have to worry about it. But every day he's concerned about his company. His company is worried. What's the status of the shares of his company? The shares go down, his wealth goes down. The shares goes up, wealth increases. So even like overnight, if his shares fell down by half, his wealth is down by half. So recently, when there was so-called the crash in the world market, Bill Gates lost half his wealth. Something from 28 billion, it came down to something like 12 or 14 billion dollars. Still, $14 billion is not a small amount. But he was so much in anxiety that he was trying to recuperate and make such a situation such that his shares will go back up again and it would increase. Now, if someone who has only $100 in his pocket, and if he loses that $100, that person can be very much worried, and he's a reason to be worried because he's lost everything he had. But someone who has $1 billion, and if he loses $100, what is the loss? There's nothing to lose sleep overnight. But people do lose sleep. You see all these rich people who are investors in the banking world. When they lose their wealth overnight, there's so much anxiety. And because of the anxiety, they end up with ulcers and high blood pressures, and high blood pressure gives them heart attacks and so many problems that they're not happy. So when we see this and say, well, if I had the wealth, my situation would be very much different. I would spend my money differently, I would use my time differently. But as material world goes, if you were in the same situation, you would be doing the same thing. Because that is the nature of this material world. You will not do anything separate. Another example I can give is that recently in England, young man, 18-year-old, just left school, no qualification, no job, just living off the welfare. But somehow his karma was that he was going to get some wealth. So he bought a national lottery ticket and he won something like 10 million pounds. Overnight, he became a millionaire. Now, young 18-year-old boy who had nothing in life to look forward to. It was a miserable situation, no job, no qualification, living off the welfare. And all of a sudden, he's got $10 million at his, 10 million pounds at his disposal. So one would think that if I had that kind of situation, I would be very happy. See what happened to this young man. He went completely crazy. And he started spending his money buying all kinds of objects of sense enjoyment. In fact, he bought, I think, all the top cars which you can buy, which are very expensive. Lamborghinis and Porsches and all these fancy cars, all lined up outside his house. He bought a big mansion in the countryside. And then he started taking drugs and alcohol. And he was running around in the world, traveling this part of the world, that part of the world. And before he knew, at the age of 25, he was back on welfare. He didn't have one penny left to his name. Now one would think, in 6 years, he lost 10 million pounds. And he's back to where he started, signing on welfare, nothing to look forward to. And because still 25 is still young age, he's got a whole life to look forward to. But at 18, when he got the money, he was thinking, I'm well set for the rest of my life. All the other people, they have to work for the livelihood. I don't have to worry about it. I have money, I can enjoy and do what I like. And in a period of short 6 years, he lost everything. And he was back to where he started, a miserable life. And recently there was an interview in the newspaper, and they asked him, how do you feel? I said, I feel the most miserable person in the world. Not that because I lost everything. But when I won the lottery, that was supposed to be my most happiest day of my life. It was the most miserable day of my life. Because from that point onwards, everything turned downwards. I became an alcoholic, I became a drug addict, I had so many problems, and because of alcohol and drugs, I have so many health problems, and I'm suffering like anything. So we would think that if I had that position, I would be happy. But it is an illusion. There is no happiness in this material world of any sort, because the scriptures describe that this planet, this material planet, is a place of suffering. It's dukhalaya, where suffering is eminent. It is a second nature. So one would think that wealth is that. So we see wealthy people are not happy. So then we look at another point of view and saying, look, if I was the most famous person in the world, I'd be a very, very happy person. Because everybody looks up at the famous person and idolize him and worship him like an idol. And what happens? That person who is being worshipped by millions of people and looked upon that I wish I could be like him. In his personal life, he's one unhappy person. And I think almost everybody in every nook and corner of this world knows Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, by his gift of music, he made millions and millions. So money didn't bring him happiness, as we had discussed earlier on. Money doesn't bring happiness. And he was famous. In fact, every nook and corner of the world, you go in a small village in Africa, and you ask someone there, can you recognize this person who's the president of your country? And this person, I don't know who the president is, but I know Michael Jackson. Now, naturally, if you're living in the country, you will know who's the leader of your country. But the children, they don't care for the leader of the country. They come and go. But Michael Jackson is so popular that even in a small village in Africa, doesn't have all the access of modern television and all these things. Still, everybody knows who is he. But we study the personal life of Michael Jackson. What happened? He had money, he had wealth, he had fame, but he was not happy with his body. He didn't like the color of his skin, didn't like the shape of his nose, and he wanted to look like someone else. And he tried all this plastic surgery, and then his nose is falling around, and he's having so many problems. And then in the end, he was fully dependent on drugs to subdue his pain. And then he had a miserable death. Do you think famous people are happy? They are suffering. And someone thinks if I have endowed with most beauty, then everybody will look to me as an ideal person. Everybody would be envy of my beauty. But also beauty is very short-lived. There was one actor, when I was a young kid, we used to watch this one program called Hawaii Five-0. Hawaii Five-0. In Hawaii Five-0, there was one guy called Jack something, I forget his name now, full name. This is Jack something. And he was supposed to be the Tom Cruise of those days. Very, very handsome person. And all the women of the world were idolizing that. They would want to have him as their partner in life. But that person, when he finished the television series in his youth, but as he was getting older, he became so fearful because his body is all wrinkling and he's wearing glasses to see. And he was so fearful that he did not want to come out in the public. He wanted to live a very recluse life because he was fearful that people will see him in this state. And he was so much attached to his young and youthful body. But now, he's fearful of that same body because he doesn't want people to see him like that. Now, also we are in the same position. We are also going to get very old. Day by day ticks up and we get very old and wrinkly. So this youth is not there. The fame, wealth, beauty, all these things are of no value. Finally, one says, forget all these things. If I had power, the most powerful man in the world, I can do anything I like because everybody will be at my disposal. So you find the most powerful man in the country today, in the world, is the President of the United States of America. Just freshly come out of his youth, very young man, very dynamic person. He got elected, under the most impossible situation. If you know the history of America, to have a black person as a president would be unheard of. But he's the first person who has taken that position, very powerful. And every night he's having sleepless nights. But prior to that he was thinking, I'm going to go for this job, I'm going to get elected, and I'm going to rule this country. And now every night he has sleepless nights because he made so many promises that after I take over as the president of this country, I'll solve everybody's problems. But what's happening? Day by day problems are increasing even more. And he cannot solve anybody's problems. So his sleepless nights are there that he cannot solve the problems, let alone the power he has at his disposal. He is fearful every night that I cannot solve the problems of these people. And next, in 3 years' time, I will come back for election. And if I don't solve the problems, what will happen to me? I'll be Mr. Nobody. I'll lose all my powers. And once you are a leader of the country, what happens after you lose? You become Mr. Nobody. Nobody cares for you. So, power, wealth, all these things are not required. So, Krishna here is saying that you become attached to me because I am where the real happiness is. Why Krishna is the center of happiness? Because he is the creator of the whole universe and he can give you happiness. But the happiness he gives you is of a different nature to the happiness you find in the material world. The material world, our happiness is based on our sense organs. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. So what we perceive with our senses is we think that is happiness. And with the senses, all you can perceive is material, not spiritual. But by nature, you are not this body. You are spirit soul. The spirit soul by nature is supposed to be Satchit Ananda. Satchit Ananda means that eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss and happiness. But in order to get this Satchit Ananda effect, you cannot experience that while you're caught up in this body. Because this body has limitations. As long as you're within this body, your so-called sense enjoyment will be based on the senses only. Now unfortunately, the senses are such that Krishna describes them as like a wildfire. When the fire is burning, and if you let the fire just burn out, then very soon you will find the fire will be out. But if you feed fuel to the fire will burn. And the more fuel you give the fire, the more vigorous it burns. And the more fuel again you give, the more vigorous it burns. The power is so powerful that it will devour everything in his sight. And you see sometimes when they have these forest fires, it started with just a small spark. But as the wind blows and the dry wood begins to burn, and before you know it, it is burning the whole forest down. Even the green trees under normal circumstances will not burn, but because the fire is so powerful, it will burn even the green trees and everything in sight. And it will devour everything. So our senses are like that fire, uncontrolled fire. The more we give into the demands of the senses become more powerful. And the more powerful the senses become, the demand increases more and more. And more the demand is, then more and more you have to fulfill the desire to satisfy the senses. And at the point, you get to a point where the senses demands are so great that you cannot fulfill them. So because of that, you become very angry and frustrated and completely bewildered and lost. And then very soon you become mad. And then the disease of the modern world, which is most dangerous, is worse than cancer, is depression. In a depressed state, you are completely finished in this world. And you find that practically every person is suffering from some level of depression. Some very deep level of depression, some shallow level of depression. Nonetheless, depression is there. But those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, if you're properly situated in Krishna consciousness, then depression is not going to touch you, because you're going to be freed from depression. Why? Because you have no worries in the world. You know the Supreme Lord is your master, and you serve Him. And by serving the Supreme Lord, you develop attachment for Him, and through the act of devotion, our life becomes perfect. So sometimes people say, why should I be His servant? Why should I serve Him? Because again, in this material world, we have a concept that when you are a servant, means you'll be a slave of that person. Because in the material world, if you have a servant, then he's your slave. You make him do whatever you like. If you are, if you have some reasonable wealth, then you have a butler in the house, you have a cleaner in the house, you have a cook in the house, you have all kind of persons who do everything for you. And you treat them like third-class person. Because you're paying them. And if they don't like it, you fire them and you get a new one. And there's always another person waiting in the line to get a job, because everybody needs a job to earn some money so they can have a livelihood. So there's never going to be any shortage of someone who wants to work. So you treat them like slaves and third-class persons. But Krishna, he says in the Bhagavad Gita that when you are serving me, I will also serve you. That as you reciprocate with me, I will reciprocate with you. But our reciprocation will be of pure love. So Krishna is saying that whatever you do for me, I will do tenfold for you. So if we serve Krishna, He's going to also serve us. So it is a very wonderful relationship with the Supreme Lord. It is not of any loss, but it is of great benefit to us. Because in the process of engaging in devotional service, we actually get tremendous pleasure from within. The soul is very happy. Because the soul, it is described in the scriptures, Jivere Swarupa Hoy Nitya Krishna Das, that it is eternally a servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So when he is placed rightfully with Krishna, then he feels very happy. Because the relationship between the spirit soul and the super soul, the Supreme, is very, very pleasant and very loving. So, as Krishna promises that whatever you do for me, I will do for you. And then we see this example here. This is a very famous picture, which is of Lord Krishna and Arjuna during the battle of Kurukshetra. So in that picture, the Supreme Lord Krishna has become a chauffeur of Arjuna. Now the Supreme Lord, who is the master of the whole universe, the creator, he has become a chauffeur as a menial servant of Arjuna. And why he has become a menial servant of Arjuna? Because Arjuna is ready to serve Krishna with all his heart. And Arjuna declares that I am a soul surrendered unto you. You are my master. So when Arjuna is saying that you are my master and I am completely surrendered unto you, then Krishna is saying, I am also surrendered unto you. I will also be your servant. So it is a very wonderful reciprocation between the Supreme Lord and his devotee. But this exchange can only be experienced when one becomes a devotee in the mood of devotion to the Supreme Lord. And this is where our lives become perfect, when we are in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord. Just like in this purport Prabhupada is describing, that in the spirit of devotion, you simply serve Krishna. And then in the purport also Prabhupada is saying that there are 9 folds of devotional acts which we can perform. And these devotional acts are so wonderful that it brings immense pleasure. Now, this pleasure can only be experienced once you are engaged in the devotional path. It cannot be explained to you by words. This is a very personal experience. For example, that if I have eaten some sweet dish, and I tell you that this sweet dish is so wonderful, so you have a concept, sweet dish means it must be sweet. So you think, how sweet it will be? Is it sweet as sugar candy, or is it sweet as sugar cane, or your different kinds of sweetnesses you may have tasted. So you can figure out what kind of sweetness it is. And I say, why? The fragrance is very unique. So it's the fragrance of the sweet. What kind of fragrance it will be? So you cannot understand, but I am relishing it, and I cannot tell you. I can simply tell you some symptoms of it, and it has a beautiful fragrance, it is very sweet, and it has a very unique sweet taste. But I say, here, why don't you try it out? And then when you personally see the sweet dish, and have the fragrance, and then taste it, and find the texture of the sweet, and then the fragrance, and the smell, and the taste of it, then you understand what I'm talking about. So the next time when I say, wow, I'm taking this particular sweet dish today, then you understand, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Because you have also experienced the same sweet dish. But that experience, you cannot give it to someone else. You have to do it yourself. So similarly, in Krishna consciousness, to experience this wonderful loving exchange with the Supreme Lord, one has to engage in devotional practice. So the 9 different devotional practices which are mentioned in the scriptures are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedana. So the first 3 is Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam are very easy. Shravanam means hearing. Now all of us are endowed with the power of hearing. So we can all hear. Kirtanam is power of speech. So we all have power of speech. And Smaranam is power of remembrance. So in the process of Krishna consciousness, what is our Shravanam, as explained in this part of Bhagavad Gita. Shravanam means you hear about Krishna and his glories. You hear about Krishna's pastimes, you hear about Krishna, you hear about Krishna's transcendental holy name. And when you hear all this, then you chant, because what you hear, you can remember. So you can remember the holy name of the Lord, you can remember the pastimes of the Lord, then you can chant and remember you can also speak about the holy names and speak about the pastimes. By speaking and hearing, you can remember also. So it's very easy to do these things. You don't have to get anything external to execute this form of devotional service. The next 6 devotional services, you need something to help you. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Pada Sevanam. Pada Sevanam means worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. So when you are worshipping the Supreme Lord, as you see, the devotees have to have great endeavor to worship the Lord. You need so many paraphernalia to worship the Lord. So if you don't have all these paraphernalia, then it's very difficult to execute Pada Sevanam. And Vandanam means to say beautiful, glorious words and glorify the Lord. Now, if you don't understand who the Supreme Lord is, how you can glorify Him? Sometimes you see in the material world, we have some person, and then you have to glorify that person. So you have to do some research about his background and what is his attributes he has. And once you understand those, then you can stand up on a podium and say, no, we welcome such and such a person, he's such a great person, he has done so many X, Y, and Z things in the material world, to some philanthropic work, and you can glorify him with the attributes what he has. But if you have no understanding of what he is, what can you speak about that person? So, Vandana, glorifying the Supreme Lord, if you don't understand the Supreme Lord, then how you can glorify? It's very difficult. Now, Dasyam, being perfect servant of the Lord. So, to be a perfect servant of the Lord also, it means we have to lose all independence and fully serve the Lord. It is very difficult. In fact, in the scriptures, there is one person who is the ideal servant. He is Hanuman. Hanuman, is serving Lord Ramachandra 24 hours a day. From the moment Ramachandra wakes up, he's right at his bedside and he starts serving the Lord till the evening. And in the evening, when Lord Ramachandra takes rest, he goes onto the roof of the palace and he's having vigilance to see that nobody would come and disturb the sleep of his Lord and Master. So all night he's awake to make sure there is no elements and demons who would come and disturb the sleep of Lord Ramachandra. And as the sun rises, again he's back in service. So 24 hours a day, 24/7, he's serving Lord Rama. Now for us to do 24/7 is very difficult. So to become Dasya is very difficult. Sakhyam, to become friend of the Lord, again, to have friendship with the Lord is also very difficult, because if you don't understand who the Lord is, how you can befriend Him? So that is impossible. And Atmanivedana means to fully surrender everything. You give yourself completely to the Supreme Lord. That is also not practical. But Krishna consciousness explains that by executing the first three processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting and remembering the Lord, will automatically give you the intelligence and understanding by which you can execute the other six. Because by constantly hearing about the Lord, you will get to know the Lord. And once you get to know the Lord, you can glorify Him. So the process is very simple. We have to sit down and just hear about the Lord and speak about the Lord and then remember Him. So in this day and age, as Arjuna is mentioning, and also Krishna is agreeing with him, that it is very difficult to execute this process of yoga, to find a very secluded place and be very peaceful and very quiet and meditate on the form of the super soul with one track mind. Even if we ask someone, can you sit down for 5 minutes? And we see many yoga groups these days, all sitting in this lotus position and then closing their half eyes and going Om, Om. And you find that they are trying to practice this yoga practice, but immediately there is some noise, their attention is drawn towards that. So their so-called sitting in one position and meditating on the sound of Om is not practical. They cannot actually execute that. Not only that, but if you have to sit like this for a longer time, then very soon you find it is very uncomfortable. You find the small of your back begins to ache, and then your legs are a little bit gone to sleep because there's no blood circulation, and there's an itch here and there's an itch there, and then before you know it, you cannot sit down and meditate. So even Krishna is agreeing that yes, this is not practical for this day and age. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is saying that the practical way to execute the yoga system is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the process of yoga linking the Supreme Lord to the act of devotion. And the easiest way, as I mentioned, Shravanam Kirtanam. So what is this Shravanam Kirtanam? Very simply, Mahaprabhu is given the holy name of the Lord in the form of Hare Krishna mantra. And this Hare Krishna mantra is so simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 16 syllables to chant the name of Hare, Krishna and Rama. And by the mercy of the Lord, he says that I invested all my powers and energies in these 16 syllables. And simply by chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you will achieve the highest perfection. So it is very simple, but still we find very difficult to develop taste for it. So how to develop taste for chanting the holy names is described that when you have some sickness, then the doctor will prescribe you certain medication. So in the case of a person who is suffering from jaundice, he loses taste for eating anything sweet. So whatever sweet you give him, it will taste very bitter. But the cure for the jaundice is that you have to eat sugar candy. The more sugar candy you eat, the jaundice will be cured and you will get back the taste of sweetness. So in the beginning, when we have to chant Hare Krishna, it's like we are a jaundice patient. And when we are suffering from jaundice of this material world, then we have to eat the sweetness. And then instead of sugar candy, we have to eat the sugar candy of the holy names. And if you begin to chant Hare Krishna, the taste becomes more sweeter and sweeter. And you see, as you become more and more purified, and the soul becomes its natural position again, then the sweetness gets even sweeter and sweeter, to the point that you don't want to do anything but chant the holy names of the Lord. And this is a natural process. Of course, again, in order to be cured of this disease, one has to participate in the prescription which is given by the Supreme Lord Himself. Because if you do not participate in chanting, then you will never experience the sweetness of it. The sweetness comes. So Krishna consciousness described that in the material world, the life is very, very sweet and beautiful in the beginning, but the end is very bitter. And this is the example given when the child is born. All the family members are fussing around the child, and the child has no worries in the world. Everything is provided for the child. Right up to the age of 5, the child is pampered and given everything it wants. But then at the age of 5, the child is being told now, there's some responsibility you have to take. You have to go to school now. So the child has to go to school against his will, because he has to study. And then after primary school, kindergarten, primary, secondary school, university, and then finally he gets his degree saying now you're a qualified person, you are a graduate. Life doesn't stop there, because during that process you'll meet your life partner, then you decide to get married, and then you have your household responsibilities, then you've got to get a job, and you got to get money to maintain your household life, and things are getting tougher and tougher. So it was very sweet in the beginning, and in the end, as they say, to the bitter end, because when the old age creeps in, and the body is diseased and full of pain and suffering, and then inevitable death comes, and even at that point, you don't want to give up your body, you don't want to die. You're thinking, maybe there's some solution to this, maybe something will be just around the corner to protect me from this suffering. But nonetheless, you have to die and give up, and then what happens? You have to go and get another body and start from again. So this is material life. Sweet in the beginning, bitter in the end. Now when we request someone that please kindly take to the spiritual life, it is bitter in the beginning. Because in the beginning, it is bitter because you have to give up all your lower tastes, just like the hog who is wallowing in the field and stool and is singing. You have to give up all his lower sense enjoyment for higher. But because all your life you have only known the lower taste, you cannot give up because there is nothing else to look forward to. But in Krishna consciousness he said, give up the lower taste, you will get higher taste. And Krishna himself says, Param Drishta Nirvatate. The one who has tasted Param Drishta, the higher taste, then lower taste automatically becomes tasteless. So we see that so-called the offerings of the material world, they seem very nice at this point in time, but when you are Krishna conscious and have higher taste and better understanding and realization, then all these things seems very tasteless and useless. So it's beginning of spiritual life becomes bitter and bitter. But as you're practicing spiritual life, you're getting more and more self-realized, you're experiencing the love between you and the Supreme Lord, and transcendental atmosphere is created, you've transcended the material world, then it comes nectar at the end. And why nectar at the end? That you are enjoying in a spiritual atmosphere in this material world, and then when the end comes, what happens? You leave this material body very happily, because you know your next destination is not the material world, but the spiritual world where you'll be free from birth, old age, disease, death. You won't have the anxiety of time. In the material world, time is a killer. Krishna says, time I am the killer of all. So in the spiritual world, there is no concept of time. Everything is just wonderful and glorious. And this, there's a description in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the beauty of the spiritual world. And we just have to read that and understand that this is wonderful. And then when you have an understanding, at least from a theoretical point of view, that this is the description of spiritual world, and this is what material world is, and not only we have description, but we have also experienced material world, then we can compare the two, and with little intelligence we have, then we will know that this is worse and this is better. Better I go for this option, and then our lives become perfect. So Krishna consciousness is there for everyone, regardless of what our position is. In fact, Prabhupada is explaining that in this material world, we fell into four different categories. Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, and four different four ashrams and four varnas, Sudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya and Brahmana. Now, sometimes people have misconception that in this world, they look at India and they say, oh, India has its caste system. So, what caste system is actually practiced in India today is a perverted caste system. It is not the real caste system. The real caste system, what Krishna has described, Chaturvarnya Maya system, Guna Karma Vibhaga. That according to your guna, according to your karma, according to your deeds, you will be placed in one of the ashrams. So, if you are placed in a Brahmana ashram, means you are very knowledge. If you are a business-minded person, then you are a Vaishya. If you are in administration of the government or in the army, you are a Kshatriya. And if you are a laborer working as a labor force, then you are a Sudra. Only you have a different names. In the West, we call someone who is working on a construction site, digging holes and building buildings with brick and mortar. We call him a laborer. So, in the similar word for laborer in India is a Sudra. So it doesn't make any difference. Just a word in different language, but it means the same thing. So someone who is very highly knowledge, very educated in scriptures or in even material knowledge is a Brahmana, because this is knowledge and he's imparting knowledge, like the professors in the university. So we may call him a Brahmana or we may call him a professor. It's the same thing. It's a different name. So names are placed according to the geographic location and the language you have developed to describe a particular thing. But it doesn't change the essence of it. Just like in England we have a saying, rose by any other name is still a rose. So you may have a very intellectual discussion about people from different parts of the world trying to describe what rose is in their own language. And they are convinced that this is what rose is. But it doesn't matter what language you use. Rose is still going to be rose. It will still have its beautiful petals and the very softness, the texture and the fragrance. It will never change. So if you call a rose by a different name, the rose is not going to change. It will still be a rose. So similarly, the system which is described by the Supreme Lord is there, and we all fell into the system and different categories. We just have to execute devotional principles in whichever situation we are. And whatever situation we are in, it is perfect, because Krishna consciousness is not based on individual situation. It is based on your dedication and your devotion to the Supreme Lord, and your desire to hear the glories of the Lord and purify the heart. And if you practice this process, then very quickly you will be rightly situated in your constitutional position, and you will feel very, very happy. So, Srila Prabhupada, one last statement I'll make, this is Prabhupada's personal statement he makes. He's saying that this Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. It is a natural constitutional position of the living entity. So it is not something which is imposed on someone. It is natural constitutional position of the living entity. As I described earlier on, Satchit Ananda, whether you are in an Indian body or a Swiss body or a British body or African body or a Chinese body, Satchit Ananda is the same, because all the living entities are the same. So it doesn't matter the external body. The soul's natural position is to be happy in Krishna consciousness. But due to the influence of material energy and the material surroundings, we are covered by that. So we have to remove this covering, and then when the covering is removed, then you will see that it is naturally there for you to like Krishna and love Krishna. So I think our time is up. I will stop here. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak and share some of my thoughts of how to become happy in this material world by following Krishna consciousness. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to make. Yes, sir.
What is real happiness?
Real happiness? Real happiness is very simple. To be with Krishna. Because in this material world, there is no happiness. We think it is happiness. Because how we describe happiness in the material world is by comparing different forms of miseries. And I give one example, that a guy is unfortunate, so he's living on I don't know about here in Switzerland is allowed or not, but in England, in Oxford State, you find these people, although we have a welfare system to take care of you, they're lying in cardboard boxes. In the evening, they sleep in a cardboard box. Although the government has made provision to give them good shelter, but somehow their mentality is such that they live in a cardboard box. So then a person who's walking down the street, he looks at this person living in a cardboard box and thinks, wow, he must be very unhappy. I'm so happy, I have a house. So he's thinking, walking down the street, thinking, I'm very much better situated than that person. So in relation to him, I'm a happy person because my situation is better than his. Then as he's walking down the road, he sees a big palace. And he says, oh my God. The person living in the palace is much more happier than I am. So he's happy in relation to the guy in the cardboard box, but he's unhappy and miserable in relation to the guy in the palace. So happiness in this material world is relative. We look at other person's suffering and think, well, at least I'm not suffering, so I'm happier than he is. So we think I'm happy. But that is not happiness. It's just a compromising that my situation is better than other person's, so at least I am better situated than the other person. So it's relative happiness. The real happiness is when you connect with the Supreme Lord, you are fully absorbed in serving Him, and the ecstasy you feel from within when you are practicing devotional life, that is real happiness. But that real happiness you have to experience, and then you will understand that what real happiness is. Just like I explained earlier on, if I talk about sweet, and if you don't know what sweet I am talking about, then you will speculate that it may be this, it may be that. But if I give you that sweet, then you can understand what I am talking about. So the same happiness of Krishna consciousness, one has to experience, then they can understand what real happiness is. Otherwise, in this material world, it is all kind of illusion, thinking it is happiness. But not one person in this material world you can find who is happy. Their happiness is only described in terms of other person's misery. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Hare Krishna.